Good morning, Momentum. Welcome to those here in person. Special welcome to those watching online at mochurch.tv. My name is Jeremy Speth. I'm one of the elders here at Momentum. And you know we're pretty deep in the bullpen of preachers or people to speak on Sunday mornings if I'm standing up here. Like, we're pretty far in the month of July at this point. So Dan, our lead minister, he usually takes the month of July off just to kind of take a break from speaking. And when I finished my rough draft for my sermon on Tuesday, I did a quick run through. And I was like 49 minutes, and I was like, ooh, maybe I should cut some stuff out of this. And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, you know what? Dan will actually be back next week, so maybe we'll just keep it 49 minutes so people get back into that routine of longer sermons. But, you know, in all seriousness, though, it is a lot of work to put a message together for Sunday morning. It's a lot of prayer. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of studying, just going through, talking to people sometimes. So Dan does this week in and week out just to be able to be up here on Sunday mornings. So, man, we're just so grateful for him and just all the hard work that he puts in just to be up here Sunday morning and put together a good message. And I'm just grateful to be part of a team like that can help give him that break for the month of July. And if you knew me 15 years ago, it'd be pretty crazy to think say I'm part of a preaching team. When you pulled in this morning, you may have noticed some cool rigs parked out there by the trees. I'm not sure if people left or not yet, but one of the things I do here, when you saw that promo video, is I host an event monthly called Rigs and Coffee. And I'm not going to get too deep into the woods on exactly what that is. Last year we were in a sermon series called These Are My People, and I actually did a sermon on adventurous people where I kind of really go into detail, like what's Rigs and Coffee, what do we do, and like what's kind of the heart behind it. So highly encourage you to go check that out. But it kind of like, in a nutshell, it's basically people that love camping, off-roading, just people that generally love the outdoors too. We get together, hang out, have coffee, donuts, chicken biscuits from Chick-fil-A because they're awesome. And since we started doing that in July of 2022, we've had people that travel from all over Ohio to come hang out with us in the morning. And we got people that come from Coshocton. I think it's like 2 hours away. We've got people that come from Cincinnati. There's a regular that comes from Detroit. He was here yesterday. He's north of Detroit, so he comes every month. And people have always said, hey, it'd be really cool. Do you think we could spend the night in the parking lot so we can come check out Momentum some Sunday? So Dan and I have kind of talked about it throughout the years. And earlier this year, there's a guy named Scott who's one of the regulars. And Scott's part of this group called KG Expedition Recon. And they're really a cool organization, and basically what they do is their focus is wounded first responders, so firefighters and police, whether something physical or maybe they witness something and they're dealing with something more mental, something more not seen, not a physical wound. And they say on their website, they say, we invite our wounded heroes to participate in our outdoor adventure expeditions where they can appreciate the beauty of nature while engaging in various activities that promote enjoyment, relaxation, continued recovery, allowing our wounded heroes to relax, enjoy, and progress on their journey of recovery. And, as he was telling me about it, I was like, oh, man, that sounds really cool. And he's like, well, hey, last year we actually had a YouTube, a film crew come with us, and we put together, this little mini-series on YouTube. I'll send it to you once it's done. So a week or two later, he sends it to me, and I checked it out, and it was awesome. Like, they took this group of 4 wounded heroes, and they took them up to the UP, the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, and they just took them on this awesome journey for 5 days, just driving through the woods, just all these back road trails, camping on beaches. I mean, it was amazing to watch and just to see. Some of these guys didn't know each other, but they had, there's different things, like some trucks broke down, and, even the wounded heroes got out and were like, oh, hey, I can fix that, and we're helping guys, just to see them work together. And it was awesome to see this video. So I texted Scott, and I was like, hey, man, I would love to get involved in this. I would love to come help on one of these expeditions. I volunteered my wife. She doesn't know it. But I said, my wife and I, we'd love to come and go on one of these trips. We'll cook for everybody. We'll be the camp cooks for this. And I said, Dan, our lead minister, he's actually a chaplain for 2 fire departments and a police department. So, we'd really love to get involved. And I said, hey, let me give you a little peek under the hood, so to speak. I said, Last year I did a sermon called Adventurous People, and it kind of gives you the heart and soul of why I host Rigs and Coffee. And so, it's one thing to kind of share your faith like in a Mo group or maybe with somebody in the lobby or maybe at work, but man, is it nerve-wracking sending a sermon out to somebody. Like I was like, ooh, this is a little nerve-wracking to do. So I copied the link and I sent him the link for the YouTube, and I got nothing. Not a check mark, not a hey, I'll check it out, not a thumbs up. I got nothing. I got crickets. A couple days later, I was thinking about it. I'm like, did I actually ever hit send? So I opened the message back up, and I was like, nope, I definitely hit send. Like, yep, I guess we'll see if he shows up. So a couple weeks later, he actually showed up, and as soon as he got here, he kind of like made a beeline right over towards me and jumped up on my tailgate, and he's like, man, he goes, I got to tell you. He's like, I've never been to church in my entire life. I don't know who Jesus is. Like, I really don't know anything about him. But man, that was really good. Like, I really enjoyed that. And we had a lot of great conversation about like some of the, the sermon and everything like that. But that was one of his suggestions after our conversation was, hey, you should host a camp out here so we can come check out church on Sunday morning. So last night, we had our first official Rigs and Coffee camp out at the building. Now, we had like 6 people register, but Mother Nature had other plans. So it kind of ties in today's message. So it rained all day yesterday. So we actually only had 2 of us that spent the night, so myself and another guy named Kyle. We had some other people hang out with us too from Momentum last night. We dodged some raindrops and even some bats. Poor Reeve Clausen almost got carried away by one. So if somebody next to you smells like a bonfire, make sure you give them a fist bump and introduce yourself after the sermon today. So we're going to kind of jump right into today's message, and if you don't have a Bible with you, there's a Bible in the seat back in front of you, or you can follow along in the YouVersion Bible app. Typically, we're out of the NIV version, but I like to be different, so we're gonna version hop today. We'll be in the NIV, NLT, and even the y'all version. So in the New Testament, and we're actually going through this book right now in the Momentum Same Day Challenge for the month of July. So in the book of Hebrews, there's a chapter, and it's titled "The Hall of Faith," and basically it's a chapter about 16 different people from the Old Testament, and these are the rock stars of the Old Testament. Like, when you think of faith, like, these are the guys that you think of. Like, you got Abraham, you got Joseph, Moses, David, but there was always one name in there that I always kind of like, how'd this guy make the list? Like, how'd this guy make the cut and get in there? And it's Noah. I'm like, it's like all he did was build a boat, So, and I always kind of struggled with that a little bit. So, and just like thinking through everything, I was like, okay, if you don't know the story of Noah, if you've ever been around church, I'm sure you've heard it. So the story of Noah in a nutshell is this. God creates the world goes bad, God gets mad, destroys everybody on the earth, tells Noah, hey, I'm going to do this, build a boat, take you and your family, I'm going to send you some animals, it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, the water's eventually going to go away, and I'm just going to basically hit the reset button, and we're going to start fresh. And Hebrews 11, verse 7 says, it was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. He obeyed God, who warned him about the things that had never happened before. By his faith, Noah condemned the rest of the world, and he received the righteousness that comes by faith. That was it. Sorry, my bad. So what is faith? So I think Hebrews 1, chapter 11, verse 1 kind of does a great way of describing it. So now faith is the confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we cannot see. So just that idea of like our faith is you can't see it, but yet we believe in God and we love in God. Or maybe you're a lifetime Cleveland sports fan and you believe the Browns are actually going to win sometimes. Like that's faith. I don't know if that's ever going to happen or not. So today, if you haven't guessed, we're going to kind of take a deep dive into Noah and see like how did he make it into this hall of faith? So earlier this year, or actually late last year, there's a group of guys that I do different Bible plans with throughout the year. And what's cool is I've only known these guys just from online groups or Bible studies that we've done. I've never met any of these people in person, ever. Don't know them personally. I'm not even Facebook friends with any of these guys, except for maybe 1 or 2. So they asked me to do a Bible in a year plan. I said, okay, that'd be really cool to do. Now, I admit, as I stand up here, there's still a few books of the Bible I haven't made it through. I like to take a book and kind of chunk through it. There's still a few I haven't got through. So I thought it'd be really cool to go through this chronologically. And, one of the things that I decided was, you know what? I'm going to do this on my way to work every morning. Like, I'm going to listen to this Bible plan and these on my drive in. Like, it works out perfect. So, if you struggle with road rage at all, it's really hard to flip someone the bird when you're listening to the Bible plan. Just going to say, if you struggle with that road rage at all, just going to throw that out there. So when I got to the story of Noah, and it's pretty early on in the Bible, as I'm listening through it and I'm driving to work. Now I've been project manager in construction industry for 25 years. So when I get to that, and I'm listening to it, I had to hit pause because all of a sudden my brain starts wandering, and I'm like, okay, how did he do this? How did he build this boat? There's not a lot of detail in there. Did God give him some blueprints? Did he put it on a tablet? Maybe an iPad? How were the city inspectors? Where did he get material from? Was it a union job? Was it a non-union job? What was the schedule like? And my mind just kind of starts wandering, off in this direction. But there was one thing that a couple months ago that really jumped back out and really made me start really thinking about it. And you've probably seen him on social media. And this was this AI-generated reel on Instagram that I saw, and it was if Noah had an iPhone. And it's this cool video, Noah's got a phone, and he's kind of holding it like this, and he's walking back through this video. I think we've got the video. There was sound. Just make your own music. I really love the one with the raccoons because if you've ever been here, you know that we struggle with trash can pandas in the dumpster. So there's typically a stick or a board hanging to get the trash can pandas out of there. But one of the things that really struck me was the opening scene of that. If we can go back to that screenshot, it was right here, and it's Noah with two of his sons. And I'm just going to say it's Shem and Ham because the other one name's too hard to pronounce. But what really caught me off guard was they're smiling. And I thought about that for a minute, and I'm like, man, if I was Noah and I just finished building this boat, would I be smiling? And it was really kind of something that really kind of wrestled with that thought. And I showed a few people this reel, and I asked them the same thing. I'm like, do you think he'd be smiling? And I was kind of surprised by their responses, and everybody I asked said, yeah, I think he would be smiling. And I'm like, man, and I'm always a glass half full kind of guy, the glass is usually overflowing, but for me, I was looking at this going, I just don't know if he would be. I figured, he knows he just finished this, and, it says in the Bible, he finishes it, and I think it's, 10 days, and then the flood waters rise, and he gets on this boat. I think he'd be more melancholy or more just sad, all right, it's done, but things are about to get real. It's really and they say in the Bible nobody had ever seen rain before. So nobody knows what this is. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. I mean, just think about it. When you're planning a big trip or a vacation, think about all the prep work that goes into that. Packing up all your gear, making sure you got your passport if you're going out of the country, getting everything in the car, making sure you got your toothbrush, then you were hoping to leave by 8 o'clock and it's now 10:30 and you're still at home and you still haven't left yet. Think about the chaos of a trip like that. And here, Noah's about to go on a journey. He has no clue what's going to happen. He has zero clue. There's no rest stops. There's no Starbucks to get coffee. There's no Walgreens to go get the toothpaste you forgot. This is it. And he has zero clue what this journey or what this trip is going to be like. So in Genesis chapter 6, let's kind of set the stage for what's about to happen. It says, this is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. And, that kind of paints a pretty bleak picture of what was going on in the world. And scholars believe that the flood happened roughly 16 years after God created everything. So one of the things that I always kind of wondered was, how long did it take Noah to build the ark? Like, how long did it take him? Anybody got any guesses? Anybody? No one even wants to throw one out there? 2 years? All right. So, scholars believe it took him either between 50 and 75 years, or more lead towards 75 to 100 years. So, 100 years to build that ark. Let's go back to that screenshot for a second of Noah and his sons. So, Noah started construction of the ark at 500 years old. I hope I look this good at 60. And this is him at 600 after he finished this ark. So I hope I look that good at 60. So, but think about it, like 100 years, that's a lifetime to us now. He spent an entire lifetime building this ark. And it's crazy to just think about all of the work that went into this. And when you actually go through the Bible, there's, like I said earlier, there's really not a lot of detail. So we'll go through like the building of the ark itself here. Noah 6, verse 14. So, make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Now, you're probably asking the same thing I was. What's a cubit? So a cubit's an ancient form of measurement. So a cubit back then was a measurement between your elbow and your wrist. And then there's a royal cubit, which goes from your elbow to your fingertip. So a cubit was typically around 18 inches. So that would put the measurements of the ark 450 feet long by 75 feet wide and 45 feet tall. So if you're like wondering how big that is, like just think about our parking lot out back and the old parking lot. So before we put the little addition added onto the parking lot, that parking lot was roughly 75 feet wide. So you can go out there and see where the line is between the parking lots. So as wide as the parking lot was how wide the ark was. And then from the garage all the way past that second set of trees towards the soccer field is about 450 feet. So just imagine that when you walk out there, like how big this thing was. And in preparing for it, my family and I, we decided, I thought it'd be cool, let's go down to the Ark Encounter down in Kentucky. So like here's a picture of like their depiction of what the Ark looked like. And I mean, this thing it's massive. And like here's a person right there, like my finger is the size of a person, just to put it in perspective. And you can't see this thing from the road, but as soon as you get into the parking lot and you park, you can kind of see this thing off in the distance. And it's just massive. I think I got the next slide is just a picture. I'm just kind of looking up at this thing. And again, like here's a person right here just to show you. I mean, this thing is huge. And like actually going and seeing that kind of really put it into perspective for me of like, man, like now I can see why it took 100 years to build this. And we don't know. We don't know if he had a crew of guys. We don't know if it was just him and his 3 sons doing this. I mean, that is a lot of hard work and dedication. And during this time, too, like not only was he building the ark, but it tells us in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5. It says, "And God did not spare the ancient world except for Noah and the 7 others in his family. Noah warned the world of God's righteous judgment. So God protected Noah when he destroyed the world of ungodly people with a vast flood." So not only was he building this ark, he was also like a preacher. Like he was out there trying to help people and try to save people from the evilness that's going on in the world, but nobody listened to him. They're like, this guy's crazy. And, you think about if Noah was building this ark today, Like, think about if he was doing it today. Think about the articles we'd read on the internet. Crazy man in burlap sack builds boat in desert. Imagine the memes that you would see about this guy. And think about, like, probably just the ridicule that he faced building this thing. 100 years. And people are like, what's this guy doing? He's building this boat in the desert. Like, there's no water anywhere around here. Why is he doing this? I'm sure, like, if you went into town to get supplies or anything like that, like, I just can't imagine how much people probably poked fun at him for it. And, it made me think about something that happened a couple months ago. And I'm in a group text message thread with a bunch of my old buddies that I went to high school with and from after high school. I didn't go to college. Ended up going to the School of Hard Knocks instead. And we used to do this guys camping trip every year, and it was guys weekend. And we go to my mom and stepdad had some property in Ashtabula. And this was definitely pre-Jesus days. We'd just fish, we'd hang out, we'd camp, play cards, see how much beer you could drink before you pass out. And that was kind of like what the weekend was. And in this text, and I feel bad, like they've kind of kept it going, some of my buddies, and I feel bad, like every year they plan it, I'm like, man, I can't go. And this year was no exception. Like, I had to pick up my wife and son from church camp, and I had Riggs and coffee that day, and I was like, sorry guys, I can't make it. But before I could write that in there, one of my buddies sarcastically wrote, perhaps if we have a Bible study, maybe we can get Jeremy to show up. So I quickly responded after I saw that. I was like, hey, we were just at the men's retreat, and we did this great study through this book. I can bring it out there that weekend if you want. And I got no responses. They just went on with their thread. And I share this story because I think it's kind of relevant when you think about the story of Noah and like what he faced. These were some of my best friends for years. Like, we were in each other's weddings. We all had kids around the same time. Our kids grew up together. And they're poking fun at me, and they poked fun at me to my face. Hey, it's Bible thumper, Jesus freaks here. Throughout the years, and I know they don't mean anything by it, but Jesus tells us in Luke chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. Blessed are y'all when humans hate you, and when they exclude you and mock y'all and reject y'all's name as evil because of the Son of Humanity. Y'all should rejoice in that day and leap for joy, because y'all's reward is great in heaven, for their ancestors treated the prophets the same way. And you guys are all probably going, I can't wait for Dan to be back next week. What is this guy talking about up here? So, there is an actual version of the Bible, and it's called the Y'all Bible or the Y'all Version. And it's a translation that aims to clarify the distinction between singular and plural you in the original Hebrew and Greek text. This is the only time you're ever going to get an English lesson from me. So basically what it means is, sometimes in the Bible, when Jesus is speaking, so it's either he's talking to you or maybe you. But here, they've taken that, and when it's all of you, they've changed it to y'all. So I think it's really cool when you think about that, like, blessed are y'all humans. Blessed are you when humans hate, blessed are y'all when humans hate you and when they exclude and mock y'all and reject y'all's name as evil because of the Son of Humanity. So just think about it. Like, Jesus isn't talking to just one person there. He's talking to everybody. Like, if you follow Jesus and you believe in Jesus, like, you're going to get rejected sometimes. You're going to get made fun of sometimes. And, it really is, as I was going through that, I was like, okay, well, you know what? I guess I can really kind of see why Noah made this hall of faith. Like, man, the stuff that he had to go through. And we're not even talking about, think about, once the rainwaters hit, 40 days and 40 nights it rains. He's on this ark for a year and 10 days before he gets off the ark. That is a long time to be on a boat, not to mention all the animals that were on there that he had to take care of. Just think about that. A year. And there's only 8 people on there. That's a lot of work. So, if you know me, or if you're in my Mo group, you knew I couldn't make it through a whole sermon without throwing this out there. So I was listening to a podcast, and it's not one that I typically listen to. And I love John Eldridge as an author, but I've never really listened to his podcast at all. And this one I was really intrigued by because he was interviewing Bear Grylls, and Bear Grylls used to host a show on Discovery called Man vs. Wild, and I always used to watch it when it was on TV back then. But he just wrote a book called The Greatest Story Ever Told, and he was kind of like talking about the book. And basically what he does in this book is he takes the story of Jesus in the New Testament, but he tells it from the perspective of like Mary and like the apostles and like what they saw. And it's kind of cool how he does it. And I started just reading through it just a little bit. But one of the things that they talk about in this podcast was this article that he wrote for a UK-based newspaper called The Times. And I thought it was crazy. The Times has been around since 1785. That is a long-running newspaper right there. And there were 2 points in this article that he made that I thought were really relevant for today. And the first one is he says, Sir Edmund Hillary, first man confirmed to have climbed the world's highest mountain, once said, there is no such thing as an atheist in the death zone on Everest. I'm sure, and Bear goes on to say, I'm sure a few atheists have climbed Everest over the years, but the point he made is that when you're truly afraid and there's no one around to help us, to possess a quiet faith can give us a persistence and a courage that is so much greater than what we have within ourselves. So just that idea of, having faith, like just having that mustard seed of faith, can kind of help us get through something. Maybe we got a bad health diagnosis, or we lost a loved one, or lost a job, or things just aren't going well. But having that little bit of faith can help us get through it. And if you're wondering what the death zone is on Everest, so it's anything over 26,000 feet. The oxygen gets so low that it can't sustain human life. Like you can't actually breathe up there. So most people will climb Everest with supplemental oxygen, and that's what he did in this case, because if you're up there and you're up there too long, you start losing consciousness, and like you stop realizing what you're doing. And most people that are up there and die up there, it's because they just didn't know what they were doing, and they made a mistake and fell, or they just lay down and fell asleep and just died on the mountain. And just another crazy fun fact about Everest, the Tibetan religion and their culture says you cannot remove a dead body from Everest. So you can't remove a body from there. So the summit and all the way up to Everest is just littered with frozen bodies because they can't take them off there. And one of the other things that he said towards the end of his article is, and I really love this one too, is my longing for this life within me is stronger than the fear of what others may think. I'm not too proud to admit that I need my Savior beside me and within me. Does that make my faith a crutch? Maybe. But what does a crutch do? It helps us stand and walk on in life even when we have wounds and hurts. And I really love that metaphor right there. Like, we need God in our lives. Like, we need God to help us get through certain things. Like leaning on God is not a bad thing. And some people may look at this and say, oh, well, God's your crutch. But I think this is a good thing in this way. Like, we have to lean on God. So back in February of 2024, I got the chance to go to Alaska with Dan. So we had an old intern here at Momentum, Caleb Beck, and after his years here, he ended up going to become a youth minister for Kenai Christian Church. So back in 2023, Dan got to go speak at their youth retreat for a weekend, and they asked him to come back the next year to speak at their men's retreat. So Dan was telling us about it in an elders meeting, and I kind of nudged him and said, hey, remember your buddy Jeremy? Going to Alaska's always been a bucket list trip for me. And sometimes when Dan travels to different things and he speaks at different events, he'll take somebody with him. So, if he's speaking at a young adult conference, he took somebody that was leading the young adult group with him, or, he'll take different people. So I was really hoping to get the nudge to go with him. So finally, when he asked me, I was ecstatic about it. And one of the things I was really excited for was this drive from Anchorage to Kenai. So it's about 3 hours, and it takes you down along Turnagain Arm, and it's just the most amazing drive. I mean, I can't even begin to describe it. And this is where I actually stopped to eat lunch because I very poorly planned my flights, and I traveled for 14 hours, and all I had was a granola bar and a bagel. And so I was pretty hungry by the time I got here. So I was sitting here. This is called Beluga Point, and they call it that because typically you'll have all the beluga whales like in the summertime right here, but it was just amazing. There's a waterfall right here, and the water's just kind of like rushing down, and I just sat there, and what you don't see in this picture is the wind was blowing so incredibly hard that the Jeep was rocking back and forth as I was trying to take this picture. Subway was good. I mean, I'd eat lunch there any day of the week. But it was kind of cool. Like as you travel this road, it went from rain, then you start going up the mountain pass, then it turns to snow. There was like feet of snow. They don't use snow plows. They have earth movers, like scrapers, to get the snow off the road. Then it went back to rain, and then there was kind of some other like cool, shouldn't say cool terrain, but they had a forest fire up there in Alaska not that long ago, and it was just crazy to see like all the burned trees. But to be able to like just tag along with Dan and just kind of see what he does on one of these trips was really cool. So he spoke at their youth event on Wednesday night. And then one morning we got to go to a men's breakfast, so it was really cool to sit down with these guys from Alaska that have either lived there all their life or maybe they transplanted there, just to hear like stories and what it's like to live there and just like some of the realities and like going moose hunting or like, and you're field dressing a moose in a bog and you have to have your wife standing there with a shotgun to save you from a bear that may come get that moose that you're field dressing. Things that we don't think about. We got to go to their men's group that Thursday night, which was really cool to really kind of just dig in with these guys in the men's group. And then the men's retreat itself, like what better way to, in Alaska, a men's retreat at a church camp in Alaska. But like during other times, like Dan and I would go do these little side quests. So here's a picture of him and I. We were heading down to Homer. That sun was bright. And they had just had a thaw. So it was like ice road truckers, like everything was ice everywhere. So you kind of had to you're either driving on ice for hours in the morning, and once the sun came out, it thawed, you were good. But it was crazy driving around. And then here's another picture. This is a beach like right at the end of the Homer Spit, and I could have sat here for hours. I mean, this was just such a gorgeous place, just looking at the clouds rolling over the mountains. I mean, it was just absolutely breathtaking. But one of the things that we wanted to do was, after he was done with the retreat and he preached there Sunday morning, we wanted to find something adventurous to do. So Dan has a goal of preaching and running in all 50 states. I have a goal of camping in all 50 states. However, it's pretty hard to find a place to camp in Alaska in the middle of the winter, considering most campgrounds we drove past, the snow was piled this high at the entrance, so you're not getting in there. So I've been researching Alaska trips for years, so this wasn't too hard. So there's a place in Seward, Alaska called Miller's Landing, and they have these beachfront cabins, and they're really cool. And here's a picture of our said beachfront cabin. So that is basically a Home Depot shed with a couple of sleeping lofts, maybe some insulation in the walls, no running water, no heat. We did have electricity, so that we had that going for us, so at least we had lights. This was our only source of heat here, was this wood burner right here. The view right outside this door is just absolutely breathtaking. I mean, to wake up to that in the morning was just gorgeous. And this is called Resurrection Bay right here. And this is just stepping out of the cabin. This was a sunrise. So our one big adventure is we were going to go snowmobiling up there. So night before we went and we had dinner, there's a little cafe that's kind of attached. So we went and had dinner, and the guy that's kind of running the cafe tells us, and he's talking about how hey, once you get out of Seward and you get out of the city limits and you get down to Lowell Point, there's no building codes anymore. And I was like, oh. He's like, oh yeah, all of Alaska's like that. I was like, oh. So we're staying in this Home Depot shed on the side of this beach. How is this thing attached to the ground? Are we going to float away? Is it going to get ripped away? And if you're wondering what the weather was like, I took a little screenshot of the weather. Now this was from our last night here, but this still kind of gives you a good depiction here. So Arctic air mass gusty north. Let's see. Overnight wind chills will reach as low as -20 to -40. This was in a little bit, so it says the coastal communities of Seward, Whittier, and Valdez will likely see warmer temperatures, but persistent gusts of 30 to 60 miles an hour are expected. And let me tell you, that cabin was creaking and making all kinds of noise. I've never heard anything like that before. And I mean, that wind was just ripping. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with wood burning stoves like that. So as the wind is blowing, this big wind gust comes and blows the fire out. So if you go back to that wood burner, now keep in mind there's no codes. So nothing is sealed like it should be. So there is smoke billowing from here, billowing from there, billowing from there. And then I made this stupid mistake if I opened the front door of that wood burner. So as I did that, all of said smoke fills up this entire cabin. Smoke detectors going off, CO2 detectors going off. I can't get a hold of anybody to help us. I'm like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. And as I'm trying to get through it, Dan was tired, and Dan decided he was going to go to bed. So Dan climbed up into the loft, and if you know anything about fire and smoke, what does smoke do? Smoke rises. I'm like, great, I'm going to kill Dan and have to explain to everybody I killed Dan. So, this happened again the second night when we were there too, but I got it figured out much quicker this time and didn't fill the cabin with as much smoke. So the next day, we leave, and we make the trip back up to Anchorage to fly out. And we checked our bags, and we're heading through TSA, and the TSA agent looks at me when I walk up, and she's like, "Woo! What have you been smoking?" And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean, what have I been smoking?" She goes, "What have you been smoking? Like, were you smoking like salmon or something?" And I was like, "Oh, no, we were in a cabin, and all we had was a wood burner." She goes, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." Didn't really think much of it. I love the smell of smoke, so I didn't really think anything of it. We get to the restaurant, and we sit down, because we're going to have dinner in the airport lunch in the airport before we leave. Waiter comes over and goes, "Whoa, you are the two stinking up my area. Holy cow, do you guys reek?" And I was like, oh. At that point, Dan and I did one of these, and we're like, oh, yeah, you know what? We do kind of smell like a fire. Didn't really think anything of it, enjoyed our meal. Now, I had kind of booked budget flights and everything like that, so I'm always the last to get on the plane. So this time, I don't know how, but I was like one of the first few people to get on the plane. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I was all happy, walking on the plane. And I sit down, walk up and sit down in my seat, and there's an older lady sitting next to me, and her granddaughter, I'm guessing, was with her. And as soon as I sit down, I get one of these. And she takes her sweater. She goes like this. And she just glares over at me again with like this just evil look in her eye. And she starts whispering to her granddaughter, and she glares over at me again, whispers back to her granddaughter, tries to turn the little fan thing on, and I was like, oh, I really do smell pretty bad, don't I? Like, we haven't washed our clothes. We've been here for 10 days. Like, ooh, yeah. Like, so we really smelled like a fire. So that made for a real long 5-hour flight. Let me just say, she was not a happy camper with me. But what if our faith was like the smell of a bonfire? What if our faith was like that? You can't see it, but you know it's there. You can't see it, but people around you know it's there. And in 2 Corinthians, there's a cool little verse, and it says, "For we are to God the pleasing aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and those who are perishing." So, kind of like that smell of the bonfire, like. That's something like others, they can't see that fire, but they know it's there. They know it's there by, how we treat others around us, how we treat our spouse, how we raise our kids, how we treat people that are different, how we handle conflict. So just keeping in mind with that idea, like when we're out there in the world, like that's the best way to show our faith to others is our actions and how we treat them. Let's pray.